Hello and welcome to issue 30 of the Hobby Hammer cast. I was trying to think of a smarter word.
30.
I was trying to think of a smarter word than cast. But yeah, it's a cast. I'm joined, as ever, by Miles.
Hello, everyone out there. How are you doing?
Yeah, well,
I'm really sick.
Actually,
I'm
Miles,
really sick.
You are, and it's been affecting your ability to think and produce words.
Yep.
So, I think it's great today that on the menu is an argument that I might get to win. And when I say argument, I mean tier list. Everyone loves a tier list.
Everyone loves tiers. Best ranked legions, not on the... Oh, God, yeah, I've got something. If you got kids, you know that they come back every, 2 weeks or so or something else. It's been a bit of a struggle getting through the week, but I've still managed to paint. Oh, God, what the name is this? Sound like Biden. What's the name of this marine I painted?
It's Shadrach Medusa.
Shadrach. I painted Shadrach Medusa.
Yeah, and he's in his bolt. It's the Games Workshop model, isn't it? In his bolter pose.
Yes.
And it's, you see, we've only got this from one angle, Miles, or two with a different backdrop. Though I picked the black backdrop. Yeah, the golden angle. Yeah, and we can't see all the underlaid colours within this that I assume are there.
It's the first time, so this kind of scheme, it doesn't really present itself well in the still photograph, but like in the 360 photo, where you can see it like dynamically interacting with the light. It's, what are we doing? It's a visual cast. It's a visual cast.
Oh no, it's going to be double imaged. There we go.
There you go. So when you spin it round, shoulder pads are a really nice way to show this off. It's a lot browner than I thought the scheme would be, because it's like this industrial burnt metal black. And this is based off the PDF that Matty Kane wrote for all of the Legions, available on the Patreon right now. Little plug there.
Yeah, well,
this is
if it's a bit brown, just call it Grimdark, and
Grimdark.
It just works.
Yeah, Grimdark. It's the first time I've done this scheme. I'm rather pleased with how it's turned out. Really, really happy with how it definitely has that sort of like burnt industrial metal, and it's a lot more interesting of a black than just working it up from coal black.
Yeah, which just ends up a lot obviously flatter. Now, you said usually you do like a bit of a cheating method. Could you tell us what that is? That trade secrets, or is that something that you could?
No. It's not trade secret at all. So I've resisted the scheme for years because it is a little bit of a ball ache getting through it. You need to use Tamiya clears, overlapping one another, like a billion different layers on top of one another. For a one-off piece, I enjoyed the novelty of it, but doing this en masse across an army, I think it would drive me to distraction. So when I saw the scheme for the first time, the underlying principle of it is the armor is meant to look distorted, like heat distorted. Like the black has been nullified, and you start to see the silver come up to the surface, and you start to see like all the imperfections bubble up through the surface. So I thought, okay, instead of doing it the way that was shown to me or the way that Forge World did it, let's cheat. Let's just take a color shift paint. And I think it's called Martian Green was the one I used originally. But it's a color shift paint, and then you put the subsequent like smoke layers over the top of it. So you have the color shift sitting under the other effects you put on it, and you get a pretty similar effect. But I have to say, nothing quite like this. Unfortunately, if you want to paint Iron Hands in the traditional Forge World method, there is no real cheat or hack to get around it other than just putting in the hard yards to get to the state. But if you did want a slightly different look to your Iron Hands, color shift. If I was painting an army of them, I would 100% go color shift, just to speed things up.
Fair enough. Do you know if this is obviously Matt Kane's scheme, did when they did the diorama for Istvan 5, did all of those Marines get painted in that scheme? Do you know?
No, it's just black.
Black, yeah.
No, just black. Yeah, they didn't do the Suit Marine. No, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, well, it's just mental because there's so many Marines on that diorama But yeah, you just...
Is that the one where Fulgrim and Ferris are fighting at the apex? Yeah, that's handled by a completely different studio. So those guys glue everything together very basically, paint it very basically. You're not really looking at each and every individual marine. It's more the scene. Yeah, that's done by
I thought that was like the Forge World team had like put into it.
I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. But if it's the one that's currently on display at Warhammer World, I believe a different department deals with those sort of mass dioramas.
We need to do like a blood Skype and get Matt on here to just be like, no, you're fucking wrong.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. No, the previous ones when they did the open days, those were produced by the studio. Those were produced in house.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
The docking station at when the Word Bearers invaded the 500 worlds. And they had this huge like docking bay docks. That was all done. Docks, because they produced a lot of that scenery for photographs to put into the black books. So that was all done in house.
Well, yeah. Well, have you done anything else other than being in a catatonic state and painting an Iron Hand?
I've listened to a lot of Shane Gillis. No. Well, I have done that, but no, I've painted up. I painted a few bits and pieces for Anvil Industries, so I can talk about this now. They've launched their own Kickstarter.
You fool, Miles! Let's get a picture of it. Right, so we've pulled them up. Visual medium.
Yeah. Yes.
And we're on the sort of group shot of the post-Turians.
Yes, on the British, what are they called now? Let's get the nomenclature right.
British
Space Infantry, yes. Nothing to do with anything else. It's a completely original idea.
To be fair, there can't be much criticism of it as a completely original idea.
No, absolutely not. No, okay, if you want that argument, look through the IP. I mean, it's
exactly.
Yeah. This is not the place for this argument. I don't want to get Anvil in trouble because these are great miniatures, like really, really great miniatures, all STLs that were sent to me. And I got the pleasure to paint them up for their Kickstarter. So 2 squads managed to paint up a horse lady, commissar. They don't own the rights to that word yet. And I'm also working on a command squad, which was sent a little late out to me, but they should be finished up sooner rather than later. I'm just looking at them now. Great miniatures.
Well, actually, Anvils is one of the companies that I have loved for a long time. They used to do just weapons upgrade sets that are all over the Sons of Horus that you see on channel. So whenever that is, they're full of Anvil Industries Sons of upgrades. They've also done like trench coat zombies, like World War One style trench coat zombies that they sponsored my last gaming event with because we had loads of zombies on the table. And they're just great. They're just great for these like niche bits that aren't able to be obviously.
And they've done very much in the style of like classic Games Workshop, like early 2000s Games Workshop. Like the proportions a little bit chunkier, but we talked about this a few times, like the brush feel of them. Yeah, really nice. But if you want something, so if I was to do a Praetorian army again, looking past the nostalgia, perhaps I'd want something a little bit more updated, a little bit more modern. Well, this Kickstarter's like Anvil Industries are fantastic for this because you just simply take the head, whack it on another body, and there we go. We have more modern, updated pith helmet lovers.
Yeah, and do you remember the 3rd ed, or was it 4th ed Guard Codex when they got doctrines and there was like a big page of like, this is a load of regiments?
Yeah.
That's essentially what had happened within there. It's like our Praetorian head on Cadian body is in there as one of them. Or even just as heavier troopers. They could be like the Stormtroopers or Kazakin.
So we have been chatting, and I have no idea whether it's going to happen, whether it's just one of those things like you spitball, but later next year, I've sort of very aggressively put myself forward. Could I possibly suggest some bits for you to design? You know, you don't have to if you don't want to, but hopefully they could do one of my favourite regiments of the Guard, the Salvar Chem Dogs.
Oh, that would be a good one. That would be good. I know they've got like conversion bits for like physical stuff like Ken dogs, but obviously with the way everything's going, like STLs, how were they to print?
I didn't print them out. They were sent to me. I have. So I begged them. Oh, can you send me more pith helmets, please? So they sent me the file for that. Printed out really well. They came pre-supported. Long-time viewers of this show will know the difficulties that I've had with 3D printing. I wish I could just take a file. I wish it could be as easy as like regular printing. You see something, press print, it comes up perfect. Well, thankfully, because of the supports on these, I was able to just do that. Put it on the USB, put it into my printer, press print, it printed, no issues. No bubbles, no weirdness. Thank God.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they printed really well.
You can tell you've never worked in an actual office because fucking 2D printers are the worst. They're as bad as 3D printers. What absolute twats all the time.
Oh, God, right. No, I've only worked retail when I was a student. Yeah, no, I never did an office job.
Man, printers are the worst. The worst just in any form. But, right. Anyway, that's
story there.
The anvils.
Yes.
It's not. It's just our printer at work is constantly going wrong when we're trying to print plans. Yeah. Oh man, I can't get onto this topic because it's too personal. It cuts too deep still. So I'm going to talk about what I've been doing. Yeah. So
what have you painted?
Well, I've pulled up one of your models. I've not painted anything this week, man. I have. What? I have. I undercoated the ZM that I've been doing. So
there you go. That's something.
That's going to get painted today. I painted a ridge hauler as well, but nothing. I've not done anything like wow. No like Owen Wilson's on the painting table.
But you know, okay, right. A little side tangent here. I think this. You say that, okay, I haven't painted anything. Wow. I think this might be a byproduct of social media, where every day you see somebody create some wonder, and you think, God, why can't I do that? Why aren't I keeping that? Miles has been sick all week, and he's managed to smash out this display level piece to fund a successful Kickstarter. Why can't I be that? I know, Max. I know it's difficult, but like for your average hobbyist, like
average
Max, going to work, putting bread on the table. You only have like a couple of hours a night. If you just do undercoating, if you just manage to get one thing done on the miniature, it progresses it forward. Sometimes that's all you need, that little mountain to climb in. And the more little mountains you climb, all of a sudden you're on the moon.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But it wasn't this. It was because I'm also a dirty non-casual. So it was I painted a 3 long ridge hauler along with 4 cars, and we played a rolling road scenario for Necromunda. That'll be the first game on channel for the new Underhells campaign. I've got 2 games recorded for that at the moment that will be out soon on Patreon. And then the reason Targaddon is up on screen is because you're lending me Targaddon.
Yes.
Because I'm doing Istvan 3. We've just naturally occurred to do Istvan 3 with Bill the Destroyer from Merchant Princelings, previously of Road to Terror fame. Phil and Dom, who were both on Road to Terror as well with me. So we're gonna play all the legendary missions in that.
You're getting the band back together.
Well, exactly. It didn't. I'm gonna say it didn't go well normally, but not because of any like. It is production issues because we tend to just chat shit, because like all the time and not get that much done.
Oh, there was a band that got together and started touring. They've just gone viral on social media because the guitarist was doing the solo and the lead singer wanted to kick back in for his part, and they started fighting each other on stage. Jane's Addiction, I think it is.
Oh yeah, I've heard of the band.
I can imagine that's going to happen at this reunion.
No, I want to monologue. No, I want to monologue. Yeah, well, I have all editorial control, so I'll just cut the bits that make them look bad, like I normally do to anyone that comes on the show. So, nice. and you in this one,
Yeah.
cut to you being like, fuck, everyone's a bellend.
Was it Stalin who was a big believer in like keeping control of the lists? Like he took quite mundane positions within government, but he was the guy writing and editing the lists.
Oh, I imagine so, because he was only like first citizen or whatever you.
Yeah, Stalin. Very Stalin-esque of you, Max.
Yeah, he's a business model of the Soviets. Business secrets of the Soviets.
Of the Soviets, yeah. Could get AI to write that.
ChatGPT, here we come. So yeah, we're arranging Istvan 3 at the moment. So I've been reading through book 1, and I'm about to start Horus Rising again. As in book 1, Betrayal.
Sure.
And then I'm about to start Horus Rising again. So that I can get properly into the mood. So yeah, kick off my heresy mojo, I think, again. Because I've been very Necro and the Old World heavy for a while. Same,
yeah. I mean, painting this Iron Warrior. I knew
Classic mistake.
Painting this Iron Hand. Yeah, it has got the old juices flowing again. Like looking back over the old books. Okay, so the next time we do Hobby Hammer, tell me about your heresy lust and how that's been rekindled. Yeah, because I mean, Istvan 3, I really like the different locations and trying to like almost separate those out visually with the miniatures I tried to create with the basing. Anyway, can't wait to hear more about your researches.
I will say, Miles, I'm limited by the boards I already have.
Oh, yeah, still.
I just get that in
the mind as well. Because I know in one of the locations it's more palatial, so there's like a lot of. That's why I set my Istvan force, because that's where Abaddon come down, like in the Parliament building. So I wanted like a lot of open areas, a lot of parks, a lot of like smashed places of leisure rather than like barbed wire militaristic. So hell,
well, it's the Siren Hold, and they fortified the Siren Hold, like the original people that, like say, Loken and Torgadon have been attacking. So there's a bit of warfare going on there.
Yeah. Even if this stuff is like background noise in the back, it'd be interesting to talk about, at the very least.
Cool. Right. Well, we shall do that.
Should we rank stuff?
Yeah. Let's jaunt into a tier list.
Well, actually, I guess we should actually set up what this episode is going to be about, right? So we just in a conversation. Oh God, we were chatting about this. I was bragging about this Iron Hand that I painted.
Almost.
We were talking about, okay, what's the most difficult Legion scheme to paint? And that kind of dovetailed into an argument about who are the most difficult legions to play on the tabletop. And I don't really have much in the way of input here, but Max has a hell of a lot of input here. So we decided, let's do a ranking list. Let's do another tier list, because we love arbitrarily and artificially ranking things up against one another.
In 2 days, I'm going to say 2 days maximum, because it will be like, oh, that shouldn't have been there. That shouldn't have been there. We definitely made a mistake on that one, because that always happens with a tier list. It's so subjective.
And we haven't talked about this beforehand, and we haven't really hashed out the criteria.
Well, we thought we'd do that online, right?
Yeah, I kind of love seeing people do this live, because it's like watching children come up with a new game. We got a ball, it has to be thrown over there. Like, oh no, if it hits this bit. So they're arguing about a game they've just invented with no predefined rules. So let's predefine some rules.
Okay.
Max, how are we doing this?
Right, I reckon we do the wow effect of getting you from arm's length.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
We do actually what one's like when you can study it in detail singularly. So maybe it's like army level, singular level.
Army level, single level. Okay.
Then how difficult it is to make them really stand out, or the best, or whatever you want to term within that. And then maybe then like subjectiveness as a third category to give us a bit of leeway within that if something pops up halfway through.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Those are all a bit too abstract for me right now. I'm just going to go with what is the hardest, what is the bestest.
What is the hardest?
Whatever criteria that involves, I don't know. We'll just start talking.
You've got to suggest something. You're the one that wanted to. I agree with you, but you wanted to film our process. So army level, like character.
I guess context is a big thing, right? So if you have like Death Guard, for example, that have been painted up and all the armor has been painted to like a really high glistening sheen, you have that sort of like NMM effect happening with the armor, and you've got like all this gorgeous freehand all over it. It displays an awful amount of skill, but does it display the Legion? So I guess fidelity to lore should be a consideration. Right. Fidelity
to lore is a bit of a mouthful. I know this sounds pedantic.
It is, yeah.
But if we do like lore skill threshold, like
okay, there you go. Skill, okay,
lore,
skill level.
Yeah, lore display.
Lore skill.
Let's stick with skill just because we've got to think of another word.
It's easier to spell.
So we've got army level character, so like, as in like how it displays as full army on the tabletop. Character level, and that's something that you'll study closely. And then the lore versus the skill threshold of what you can do with them. And we have to have. How do we break this up for the Primarchs? Because I would like this like equi-spaced. Do you want to do Primarchs, or are we just talking about the Legion in total? Oh no. So like the Legion. So it'd be like 5 in each category. Yeah. That sounds reasonable. Yeah, it has to be so from A, B, C, D, along those rankings. So then we have to have at least SADE. 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 Yes. That's what we did last time. So let's do that again. Let's keep it consistent. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, that's agreed. That is what we're doing. Okay. Agreed criterion. Okay, and since should we do them 1 to 20, 1 to 18, or should we? This might be the hardest argument of all. Yeah. Like, I think we did reverse. Did we do reverse order last time, or did we do random order? Maybe. No, we did. We did alphabetical order of Primarchs. Oh God. Okay. So we can start at Dark Angels if you want. Let's start at Dark Angels. Yeah. But should we do that just to knock them off? Yeah. They're in a random order on my screen, but. Oh, if you got random order in your stream, because I think that's far more. See, you don't know what's coming up next. Well, let's start with Dark Angels now, because I've already pulled them out of the mix. Dark Angels. Let's start with Dark Angels. Black. It's army level. I think it blends in far too much. Yeah. Very hard. This is one thing we didn't discuss. Are we going like... Because hardness, it can be hard, but result in something good. Is that better or is that worse? Dun 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 dun. Yeah, unpack that again for me. Sorry, what? Right. It can be hard, but is something hard, but then that can be done successfully? Is that S tier or is that E tier? Whereas is an easy Legion to paint that looks really good? Oh, I see. So say, let me pull a random one out that you might disagree on it being easy to paint to like a really good standard. I think Fists, the yellow does really well as a colour to display skill. Right? Just take that as a premise. Yep. Does that make it S tier or does that make it E tier? Do you know, is it S tier is the hardest and E tier is the easiest? God, we really shot ourselves in the foot here because it comes down to the skill of the artist, right? But of equal skill levels. Let's go with your skill level. Oh, God. Because just to set a bar on it. Okay, right. So the yellow is much easier to display your skill as a miniature painter rather than, say, like the Dark Angels. Because the black just drinks in the detail. It drinks in the nuances that you could produce with it. Whereas yellow, there's a reason why brighter, more polished Legions take home Best Painted awards with them, rather than
thing like Death Guard. You can have exceptionally painted Death Guard army, but because it's not as peaked or as refined as Silicon Emperor's Children, it lacks because of it, or lags behind rather. So I mean, going back to Dark Angels, for example, I mean, I think you could work you could work up a really complex, gorgeous black scheme, but you put that against a yellow scheme where you don't have to put that much effort into, and I think they'd look from a distance on par. Now, Dark Angels, I think, really benefit from those secondary details you introduce into it: the wings, the shoulder pads, like the filigree, the detailing. The black is almost used as like a backdrop, a background, to then put things, overlay on the top and embellish with it. So as far as like schemes go, I mean, I'm always a bit of a sucker for like a black scheme. In terms of how hard it is to produce, I don't think it can be as hard or as easy as you like, right? But to make a very good-looking Dark Angel army is quite hard to do.
Right,
so,
I think we've got to talk about top-tier stuff. Do you know, like, rather than... And this comes down to, again, to categorization.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're saying from an army-level perspective, you think... So I would put Dark Angels on an army-level perspective harder to get right, because there's not the wow factor that then will draw you in to sort of like the character level. Let's
boil the segment down to like its quintessential question, like the question that kills, as JP would say. What is the hardest legion to paint? S being the hardest, all the way down to easiest.
Yes.
In that categorization, okay, black is quite hard to paint. Black is quite hard to bring the kind of nuances to make it look dynamic and interesting. So it is one of the harder schemes to produce. Is it the hardest? No, because you have access to those secondary color schemes.
Yeah.
You could add green, red, white, checkers, chevrons. There's a wealth of visual information you can put on the top of them. So so S is the top tier. A is the one beneath it.
Put
it into the
SAB.
A tier.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So where are we thinking of Dark Angels then? You've got these secondary details. You've got the ability to like tinge the black into various ways to get additional colours in.
Yep.
So we're not thinking S. You've got the actual painting of the details. Like if you're going to freehand a load of checkers and you want that to actually look really good, that's a skill within it. That's like a sub-skill within itself.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm happy placing an S for now, unless there are any other...
Yeah, and these will be movable, like the Primarchs will...
There are two I'm thinking of that immediately leap out to me as being the hardest to pull off. But yeah, I'm happy to put it into S, and then we can shift it around.
Right. So, next to randomly be pulled out, Word Bearers.
Oh my god, okay. I would put these up quite high. Because red... and I feel like we'll be saying this a lot in this episode, but red is a really difficult color to paint. So the Word Bearer red, they described as being like split blood, dried blood. So it has like that browny quality to it. Now, if you paint the Word Bearers like the representation you see them in the black books, has that more brownish element to them, they just look very boring. Dare I say it? So when I paint my Word Bearers, I like adding a little bit more magenta, like a dark magenta into the mix. So I'll keep on the cool side of the spectrum. But so Blood Angels, for example, you can go into purple, you could go up to orange, you could go up to like almost like skin tones in the top highlights. You have just such a wide range of hues and values to play with. But the Word Bearers, they're in such a small, narrow spectrum. It's
You mean before they start looking like another legion? So say, because actually I'd say red is, or in my experience at least, is quite an easy colour to paint because you do have that spectrum. But you're saying that because otherwise they'll look like too heroic.
Blood Angels.
Yeah, like Blood Angels.
And this is a problem we'll encounter again and again, because there are a lot of red legions in the Heresy. How do you differentiate them? How do you make them stand out from one another? So the Blood Angels, on the whole, you want more towards the orange side of the spectrum, more slightly brighter, whereas the Word Bearers, you want slightly darker, more brown, magenta, darker elements to it. But whenever you introduce, or whenever you have a dark scheme, it's hard showing like this multifaceted hue. It's a little bit more difficult to paint because it's slightly darker and it leads more towards a brown side of things. But again, we do, and the secondary color is black, so dark on dark. The saving grace of this is that you do have, well, you have the potential to put quite a lot of scroll work on them, which look amazing. Like the decal sheet is one of the strongest in the Heresy. And thankfully, you can put like pennants, you could put like purity seals, you could put oaths of moment.
I would say that is hard to do right, though. I've seen it done so often where that's actually such a negative factor for. So I don't think this is such a saving grace for them. I think that's quite there's a skill level to that needs to be achieved before it actually becomes a positive.
Okay,
do you know, like, it's easy to whack a load of purity seals, like whatever, on there. To get that in a good amount for a Heresy Legion, do you know, like, which aren't obviously Wordbearer is one of the more ornamented legions with stuff like KSC stuff. But if you don't do that correctly, it can just look like you finger painted the model and like scrawled all over it. Yeah,
so for purity seals, a little tip I can give you, the Sisters of Battle decal sheet, they come with this tiny, tiny little script work. So if you do struggle with script work with a brush, you could buy a load of those to overcome that skill gap. But yeah, I 100% agree. That's why I put these more towards the A/C S tier. So it's the difficulty is definitely high.
We're going in another, like.
Let's go.
Right. Let's compare Dark Angel. Do you think it's harder or easier than Dark Angels? I would say to get a real good Dark Angel scheme is harder because you're struggling against that black rather than having that option. The black itself is a problem, whereas red itself isn't a problem. It's just getting the right red.
Yeah, to a certain degree. But making the red look interesting then becomes the issue because it's so dark. Night Lords are another one we'll be talking about, like that midnight blue. Everybody has their own conception of what that means. And then when you have a very dark blue and you start spiking up the value and you start trying to introduce like gradients.
We can't be talking about Night Lords now.
We do those next week. It's harder to give different gradients to a darker shade than a lighter shade. So that's why I think that, and like you mentioned, they come to life when you embellish them with different details, with the purity seals, with the freehand, with conversions maybe, and they also have black to deal with as well. So you have two dark colors. I think they're towards the upper end of the difficulty spectrum.
But give us a number, a letter, S or A. Yeah, I'll go for that. That's what I was sort of getting at with like because we're obviously not bound to this within the list. If we fill up A and there's no more S's, we'll just be like, word bearers go up. And since you wanted to talk about them so much, Night Lords, as you're saying, you've got that blue. As you were saying in the word bearer section, you've got the
Lords.
midnight blue.
I blame ADB for this because he coined the phrase "in midnight clad." And everyone has their own conception of what that means. Now you see amazing color schemes, but in my mind, they're always too bright and they look closer to the ultramarine cobalt than the dark Night Lords. I've even toyed with the idea, so you can take this sort of like very thin copper wire, and the lightning strikes. Oh god damn, gives you a migraine. But and is that lightning effect painted onto the armor, or is it one of those extra ocular effects, like the Harlequin diamond effect? You know, when they move, they kind of scatter into diamonds.
Yeah. Well, how I've always imagined them, like, so reading the Night Lords trilogy and like the various Heresy books, the actual midnight, they're black. They're literally black.
Yep.
And where the lightning is, that's where you would get the blue emanating from. So their armor almost removes the light, and then you've got the crackle of lightning, and that's instead of doing a top-down light source or something like that, you would do the light source emanating from the lightning.
So for you, that's like that extraocular effect. It's a physical like crackle across the armor. It's not painted on.
Yeah, well, I think it's described as that a few times, isn't it?
Yeah. In some books, it's painted on. In some books, it's crackling.
I suppose it just depends on whether your armor's been scavenged and stuff like that. But Yeah, it's...
But so you could take this very thin wire. I've been toying with this idea and like putting it across the armor, and then using OSL to like you've just said, like illuminate those parts of the armor and have the blue and the purple bringing in the lightning streaks. But I mean, that would just be a nightmare to do across an army, because as soon as you pick the miniature up, boop, you've cracked that little bit of lightning that you so painstakingly. I mean, it's practically like the thinness of a hair.
Yeah,
stuff.
Is it? I've seen it on Instagram pop up a couple of times.
Yeah,
like
it's that
people have been doing it, and it's mainly dioramas, isn't it, rather than
single piece miniatures. It's just not appropriate for an army.
No, well, I think you could maybe do it with. I think we're going to land on an S tier here, but just as a background topic, with like a background to our side track into Night Lords, and. Yeah, I think you could do it with painting the lightning on and get that sort of effect of it emanating. Like, I do agree with you that a lot of the Night Lords I look at and go, oh, it's not midnight clad.
It's too bright.
Yeah. And I think actually to get a Night Lords like on the low skill threshold bit, super, super high.
Yeah. It's something I've struggled with. It's something I've struggled with again and again and again to try and get that perfect midnight blue hue, but not highlighted so much that, because when you look at the Forge World artwork for it, there's quite a lot of like light baby blues right at the very peak of the highlights to give like the volumes of it. But when you translate it onto the miniature, it doesn't exactly translate across.
Yeah.
And the lightning bolts, freehanding them is an absolute nightmare to do. Now, Forge World, the decal sheet does come with really nice lightning strikes, but there's so few of them.
Yeah.
And again, trying to outfit an army, like this is a problem we keep keep finding again and again and again with these decal sheets. They're amazing, but they just don't give me enough of what I need.
So, are we running into... It's halfway to black, if not. It's a midnight black blue, which gives it the problems of black. You've then got problems with placement of colour. We've got problems of sometimes with the black army you could just highlight it like a mid grey, and that works to still give the impression of black. Whereas here, doing that takes it into almost another colour because you've got that blue throughout.
Yep.
And we've got the lightning strikes themselves and how that interacts with the low skill threshold. I think we've just knocked Dark Angels off with 3 in. And I think we've just knocked Dark Angels off.
And to compound this, the question of weathering, because the armor is described as the armor is polished and maintained. It's just they don't particularly care about it that well. So you've got all these scratches across it, and as soon as you introduce the scratches, it makes the armor look lighter. And they do have a propensity to cover themselves with flayed bits of body. Now, how many times have you seen a flayed face that's painted in like normal skin tones that just looks completely out of context with the rest of the armor? I think Night Lords benefit from a very atmospheric color scheme where you need to set them ideally at night. So that skin tones, like all these skin colors that you normally rely on to do skin, well, these should be changed because you're seeing this through a prism of night or at midnight. So all the colors need to be slightly on the bluer, the greener, the purple side of things. Not only do you need to think of the atmosphere of the piece, you need to think of the tonal atmosphere of the bits of bodies he's wearing on him as well.
Yeah, like even if it's not 90s, then like studying horror films to see what colour palettes they've used for and tone.
You can look at my skin
we
tone
could talk
right
about. You're so conscious of this all the time. Just get a more washing out light like mine. Look, I'll just go really into the brightness and wash myself out.
Look at that.
Oh, and then back down into an overexposed low light level.
Absolute pro.
Right, so Night Lords, strong top S tier.
Strong S, yeah.
And I think I'm gonna move Dark Angels down to mid, like
A.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna leave them in S for now.
Okay.
But, like, it doesn't feel like they should be close to Night Lords with how we've both just talked about that scheme.
Yeah, I could see that tumbling out into another layer.
Right. Okay. Next random scheme. Salamanders. So salamanders.
Salamanders.
We've got
salamanders.
I reckon we're going to be the first DRE here because it's salamanders have the benefit of being, or what can be, a light scheme. You can get depth into there, but they've got the options of having those highlights within the armour of quite a bright green.
Yep.
Green is a standout from like arm's length away. You will look at that army because it will just capture your interest.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as easily weathered as some others, but like just with how green is, like you might you might think differently on that, but with the look on your face just then, but but I think it's got the strong sort of pull factor of interest and easy to get vibrancy in and saturation. Go on.
Yeah. No, I
agree on all points. We've got to argue on something, Miles.
No, weathering, that's complete nonsense. No, don't listen to Max on that. So the human eye could detect more shades of green than any other hue. It might have something to do with us being primates swinging through jungles and our success as a species being able to detect different predators. If you so happen to believe in that, if you believe in something else, that's absolutely fine. That green, it just has...
What do you mean by... No. Stop about the green. What do you mean by if you believe in that? Do you mean evolution?
Yeah. It's a theory. You know, Darwin even in himself says, okay, it makes more sense than other things, but I'm not trying to disprove anything. This is just a theory I got. I know people are entitled to their own beliefs, that if you don't believe we came from these simian-like creatures swinging around, eating each other.
Right, sorry, I just had to stop you there. Right, we're going to continue about green.
Green, yes, green. I mean, this green, like you say, you can make it more saturated. You can have more yellow notes in the top highlight. You can have more... I've seen a scheme that uses...
Are you going to pull out ice yellow now?
Like Ardennes green and fall green, that I'm desperate. It seems like everybody, a little bit like Sons of Horus, that everybody has their own recipe for salamanders. And generally, they all look great.
Yeah, they all work.
I think it's become even easier with the advent of contrast paints. So if you take a little bit of Mantis Warriors green and then shade that with orc skin. Oh, there we go. Yeah, beautiful. It creates a really, really beautiful green. Simple, effective. You whack a little bit of Rhinox hide in the shadows for that. That little bit hint of purple, brown to ground the scheme. Yeah. Because mainly rust is on the more red side of the spectrum, you can have like really nice rust streaks on the side of vehicles. The decal sheet is freaking sick, and I know it really shouldn't matter that much, but the models, the sculpts, Vulcan, the Terminators, the Pyroclasts, all freaking sick miniatures with the... you can tell I've been listening to a lot of Shane Gillis. Yeah, freaking sick, bro. Salamanders, yeah, America. With salamander scales across... Like, dude, the salamander scales. The salamander scales, you can paint those in different colors. You can paint them in red to contrast. You can paint it in like cool blues. There's just so much you can do with this collection to make them really stand out, pop from a meter away, and make them pop up close. In fact, okay, so there's a guy, Full Circle Hobby.
Yeah.
Who is collecting a new salamander army, and it looks freaking divine. Let's stop here and bring up some images.
Yeah, I've already done that off camera, so it lacked punch. But yeah, that is, and it was a genuine off camera. That is sick, bro. No, that looks amazing. It's got the saturations, and
it's just got everything. It's like that muted heresy that we all love, but it's nice and colourful at the same time. Great conversions. Everything you want from your hobby, right there, distilled into one salamander image.
Do you think? And this has just popped into my head with considering this. having it as that do you know what? Easier scheme to make really vibrant, popping, all that. To separate your own salamanders as a salamanders painter, as a salamanders painter that might be listening, it then makes it harder to differentiate yourself and
Not
stand
so
out
much
within that.
Because there aren't many salamanders players out there. I don't see many out there.
No, right, okay, so salamanders maybe not, but say like if there were, or another scheme, do you think we have to take that into consideration? Or are we asking too many questions?
Because there isn't sort of like Ultramarines blue. You see quite a lot of standardization across Ultramarines players. They all have a very similar methodology and a similar way of doing it. Whereas salamanders, each person has their own take on it. So I've seen more muted tones than this that work really well. This works really well. I've seen more saturated, colourful ones that work well. There isn't that one scheme that everyone goes, that is the one I want to do. That's the one I must do. But after seeing this, that might be the sort of gold standard of salamanders.
So we're saying the low skill threshold is low as well. So the opposite of E tier then, isn't it?
E possibly D, because I wouldn't say it was the. Is
it within the top 5 easiest?
Yes.
So that's E then. It is. That's
there you go. E. Yeah. E. But weirdly enough, it's an easy scheme to paint, but it's hard to get it looking right. It's an odd thing, but salamanders that just look slightly off, or the green. I always wished I could do salamanders because the models are sick, but I don't like painting that green. That's more of a yellowish green. I like cooler greens.
It's okay, Miles. It's okay. We don't have to justify why they're in E. I think we've given them a good 7-minute run, if not longer.
Yeah, but I'd love to paint salamanders done in a black and red scheme. Next Legion.
Right.
Next Legion.
So I'm going to go on record as any I put in here are absolute trash. And I hate them. Right. Miles still enjoys painting them all.
Yeah. So I'm planning on doing a new series, painting the Legions. I'll be painting all the secondary schemes to them.
So there we go. There's Miles doesn't hate you if you paint any of these schemes.
No.
Now you don't have to justify E-Miles. Right. Let's do Space Wolves. Because this has been standing out to me because I've got the definite wrong, along with Dark Angels, because I've got the wrong icon for them. Because I've got the Ragnar Blackmane 40k one. That's an aside. Anyway, Space Wolves, it's grey. They've got elements of red.
Yeah.
They weather real easy, I'd say. Because it's a real good base. Even the cloaks and stuff. You don't agree?
But it's a dark grey for 30k. It's dark grey.
It's mid. Well, it depends, isn't it? It's mid grey. Like the 13th Company has always been.
Let's look at that value scale. Okay. Do you have a colour wheel?
Of course, I've got the exact one that you told me to buy.
Okay, right. So on the value scale, where would you place the value? So I put them at a.
Which side's the value scale?
Oh, sorry, it's on the front. Yeah, it's just.
Should I rip this front off, Miles?
Rip it off, then eat it. Yeah. So it should be value 1, which is 100% black, up to value.
See,
10.
I'd say between 5 and 6 was because the actual sort of original colour schemes that the Heresy schemes were based off was sort of like a 6. That was the original sort of 13th Company that had been around since the Great Crusade scheme.
Right.
It had been...
Oh, you mean the 13th Black Crusade when they brought those miniatures out?
Yeah, and that's what the scheme at least takes inspiration from. People take that darker, maybe a 5.
Me, it would be around the 3-4.
That's very dark for what it. For what it is.
Yeah, agreed. But as a base, then you can modulate around this. So you could go higher in the highlights glowing. But as a base, if I was asked, okay, what is the color you use to paint? It would be around 3 or 4.
I would say you
for my conception.
I would say
of the Vulca Theorica. You're wrong wrong for calling them Space Wolves, mate.
That's the scheme that idiots that don't collect Space Wolves call them, so I think I got it right. Do you collect Space Wolves? No, call them the Space Wolves.
Yeah, I'm growing my beard in.
No, I actually, like Prospero Burns. I came on your podcast and debated about Prospero Burns, actually, because I love that book so much. So, yeah.
Space Wolf players hate that book. They detest that book.
It's because they're all idiots.
I didn't understand that. It's a good book.
No, it's the comparison to 13th Warrior that a lot of people don't like.
Oh, we need to bring Keith on here because he has some very strong opinions about that, and Dan Ebnett.
What, and not liking?
Bring him on. Very much so, yeah.
Next episode, get him on.
I don't think he ever wanted this to be shown publicly, but tell with it, yeah, he is not a big fan of Dan Abnett. And you can send the hate mail directly to his house.
Dan Abnett can't do Viewpoint Space Marines, I will say that, but Brotherhood of the Snake was good. He was alright.
Space Wolf's colour schemes, yeah, it's grey. It's essentially grey. How do you make that grey look good? It's introducing a colour into that grey.
Yeah.
Turquoise, blue. I've worked on a purple scheme very recently that I'm rather enamoured with. You could add green to it. So we back on the Age of Darkness when we were doing Legion specials, we talked about, okay, what if you had like Siege Wolves list? So these guys, they're used to hunting. They're slightly more nomadic on the water. So their armor would reflect their history and have more like a greenish tinge to it. It's a very difficult scheme to make look interesting, but in terms of painting it, I would say it was one of the easiest to do. Right, well, like salamanders, easy to do, hard to make look exceptional.
Were we just talking past each other? Because I think I was going for, or maybe for different reasons, but just going towards the same end as you.
I think you made that point, and then I made exactly the same point again, but claiming it as my own.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Claim away.
Yeah, my wife does that.
D, I reckon D. And we can bump it down to E.
I'm happy with D.
Yeah.
D, E.
I think it's got opportunities for interest, as you said, in there, like with the greens and the sea. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, with the salamanders, yeah, I'm going to repeat it again.
Yeah! We clearly talk to each other too much now. Oh, no. Right. We're getting the randomised pulling out list.
Oh, we do have to say, we were chatting about this in the break, we aren't going to speed this up. Instead, we're going to break it up into a two-parter. This is too good, just to linger a little bit on each of the legions.
Yeah, especially we're coming up to the end of the time slot that I can actually do this in. So,
yeah.
What are we on? We're on 5. We're on 5. Yeah. We'll see where we get to.
This is going to be a 4-part episode.
We just won't do what we've been doing this week in the second part, I think.
Yeah.
Or we'll record this first, and then if we've got time.
Oh, we could do like the secondary schemes of the Legion as well, like the pre-schemes as well. Okay, yeah.
No.
Add that into the show notes, yes.
Right. Let's do World Eaters. White and blue.
Good choice.
White and blue.
Blue/red. Weirdly, since Heresy 2.0, if I did a World Eaters army, I'd have to do it white-red, because it feels like we've progressed on from the simple innocence of version 1 and the World Eaters, I feel, need to take on that darker shade of red.
Yeah, like I agree. I always had this idea of doing World Eaters that the alt colour is stained, just like multiple levels of stained blood. And I know that's not an original idea, but to get through that, like, because the white can be so easily stained, actually painting that white, I wouldn't say is that hard. I would say it comes down to that secondary colour, like red, as you say, or blue for earlier Heresy.
It depends how complex you want to make. I mean, ultimately, you could just blast it with white primer and then shade it with a contrast paint. Yeah. And that could be your white. And then you could do, like, it gives you a nice basis to put, like, blood effects and weathering, staining. Yeah.
This was my thought was when you actually got that white scheme, especially like in the old days when everyone's painting with brushes and no oils, back in days of yore, Like it was mental to paint a white scheme, especially a white army. But I think as soon as you start introducing these more heresy type effects that are popular, it takes the fear of doing a white scheme down, because they stain so easily, because they show up the effect so easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Do you think there's mitigating factor of the secondary colour, or do you think because that's an accent colour,
I think it helps
out the white? Yeah.
I think it helps. Yeah, without that blue punch, it would look quite boring. I think they've done the same trick with the white scars. They've added white and then the red.
Should I just pull white scars into this same question and we'll do two at once?
Yeah. Actually, we can skip over white scars entirely, because all the same discussion points apply to them. The weathering, the nails, the blood stroked effects. No. With the World Eaters, the blue, I always love painting them like the Ultramarines, because the colour schemes, when you look at them, white, gold, bronze, blue, the original scheme. And Angron landed within the realms of Ultramar, right, on New Syria. So in my Hind conspiracy brain, I always thought, okay, what if there was a plan on the Emperor or whoever's part to have those two legions link up alongside one another and act in concert? You know how some legions were designed to work in concert with one another? I thought maybe there's something in the genetic coding, because they're both very big armies. The gene seed implantation is very quick, very easy. It's very stable. They have a lot of similarities, and then the color scheme links them together as well. The white, bronze / gold, and white.
Okay. If I agree with that, how does that tie into how hard it is to paint them?
Not at all. It's just one of those little.
Asides.
It's just one of those. It's just one of those thoughts I have when I'm here for 8 hours a day, thinking, "Oh, that's a similar thing."
One of those segues which we've not had too many of in this show already.
Yeah, not at all.
Right, I'm going to go, and we'll give white scars their moment in the sun in a second. I'm going to go with E, because of the ease of that sort of like the secondary effects that you can do to them. Now, if someone's painting these with a brush, feel free to put them in S and not doing any oil effects or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
oils make things a lot easier. But yeah, with airbrush technology now, they look great from across the way. They look great up, and if you manage to get tasteful blood effects on your miniatures, it really just ignites the entire scheme.
Do we think they're easier than salamanders?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Salamanders off the tops, off the hardest spot, easiest spot even.
You stinking salamanders.
Right. We've done this in such an odd way. S should have been the easiest. Right. Right. Do we go white scars next? Or do we leave it for a bit so that we can... Right, okay, white scars next. We don't forget them like all of the other Primarchs. Are we finishing on white scars?
Let's finish on white scars.
Are we finish? Right. White scars, the same, obviously, about the white.
Mm-hmm.
It takes really well to any dust effects that people might be putting onto their models, because of like they're going high speed all the time and on jet bikes.
And they're living in their saddles, right?
Yeah,
you want that slightly more grounded, worn. So you take like a little bit of like an orange, khaki tone. You work that into the shadows of the white, make the white look more interesting. The red, I always like to make it slightly more like the brown side. Again, not to have like this big, bright primary red, orange, to make it seem more like leather. Slightly more natural. And with the jet bikes, with the bikes, it's just such a... you got all these like amazing swords and the different skin tones you can apply, because most of the time like they'll have their helmets off, or maybe not. I'm not sure, but a very visually striking army, both in terms of composition and color scheme.
Do you think there's any dags? Let's talk dags for a second.
Dags.
Break it down, Miles. Like, so they can be very successful. Do you think they can be forgiving, on painting them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think because I think they're good for hiding bad areas, and also can be quite forgiving on that as well. And they again they enhance the visual appeal from an arm's distance.
I think the difficulty comes in with the masking to get the
perfect lines and symmetricalness.
Yeah, and get like the scars across them, like the tribal designs. The decal sheet does help, but you're going to still want those like jagged peaks of red on them. And then if you slip it up if you're doing it all by hand, you slip it up with a white. Oh my god, that's a nightmare to try and clean up. So forgiving, it is an easy scheme, but not a forgiving one. So I don't think we could put it in E tier. It would have to go into D.
Because of those dags.
Because of the dags, yeah. Because of the dags.
The dags. I'm going to go for in the D, but it's D/E. Just because we've got to start putting, like, I suppose we're now heavier on the DE side, but
yeah.
I'm concerned, Miles, that we're going to think a lot of them are very hard to do. Like in majority.
Well, there's two in particular that immediately jump out and say we are the most difficult schemes, and we will get to that in our next issue of Hobby Hammer.
I don't know what you're going to say, so I'm just going to pull randomly. Thousand Suns?
You have to tune in. You have to tune in to our next issue to find out.
Oh, is that where we're leaving it?
That is where we're leaving it on the cliffhanger.
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this issue. Sorry we ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and what do you think? Put in your own tier. Like, what is the most difficult scheme that you can... And you know what? You don't even have to... At the end, Max doesn't know about this, but we'll be talking about, okay, other schemes. So we'll be talking about 40k, a Warhammer Fantasy. Just a slight segment, like what are the ones that immediately come to mind that are the most difficult.
No one's going to do the click on the video that I want to do, which is Schemes of the Empire. No one will click on that.
No one will watch that. That's
Ostermark is so hard.
That's dead in the... But we can talk about that in the conclusion. So what is the most difficult scheme that you've ever painted, guys? Thank you so much for watching issue 30 of Hobby Hammer, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you in a bit.